Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla, here to talk to you today about the Pit Bull Trailer Restraint System. You should be looking into a Pit Bull Trailer Restraint System if you have a motorcycle and a trailer and you're looking for the most solid way I can think of to marry those two things together. Now, these are currently made for a wide variety of motorcycles. There's some measure of universality here we'll talk about in just a little bit, but you do need to use our bike finder to find out what pin kit is going to work best with your motorcycle. You're going to find these primarily made for street bikes with some decent Harley coverage in there as well. Now, as far as installation on these, I'm going to call this probably a 2 to 3 bearder on our beard scale of difficulty. You do need to have a pretty decent working knowledge of how tools work, how measuring goes, and how to actually bolt stuff into place on a custom installation, because there's not really going to be a one-size-fits-all install for these. We'll talk more about installation in just a moment. I like to think when I do these videos, I'm maybe slightly better than Vanna White. I'm not just standing up here turning the letters and turning the product around. Instead, we're trying to add some measure of value here. However, with this particular product, it's not really immediately clear what this thing actually does, but once you see it in action, I think you'll understand perfectly why this is such an effective system. So take a peek at how this thing looks when it's actually being used. Super effective and super simple, right? Notice you saw one person operating this entire setup. It's easier to use this with one person than it is to tie a bike down with tie downs with 2 setups. It's really a very good system. It's effective, and it also is easy to use. I'm thinking primarily of those of you who wind up hauling a bike. Perhaps you do a track day by yourself. It can be hard to get a bike into a truck or a trailer by yourself. Fortunately, Pit Bull makes it a cake with this system. So we can get into the history of Pit Bull really briefly. It's a company that's been around for quite a while. We know them primarily for their paddock stand stuff. You guys have seen us use Pit Bull items here at RevZilla just plenty. We love this stuff. These are built right here in the United States, and actually I should probably modify that to say they are overbuilt right here in the United States. Like all Pit Bull stuff, this is just the Cadillac of construction techniques. Super thick wall tubing here these things are made out of. You can see obviously the zinc finish on here. The zinc finish really keeps rust at bay almost permanently. If you were looking for a trailer restraint system to pass on to your grandchildren, well, this is the one. Not really sure who's looking for that, but hey, you have the option. And of course, too, you notice the TIG welding on here. It's just really finely crafted and very well thought out. In terms of efficacy, this is probably the best trailer system available on the market today. It's patented, so you won't see this design anywhere else. This thing works really well. If you cruise around on some of the forums, you'll see folks who have had these things, they've wrecked their trailers. The trailers actually wind up on their side, and while it's not recommended to side load these, they've found that they opened up their trailer and bikes were lying perfectly perpendicular to the ground because the Pit Bull Trailer Restraint System held them into place. What that also means is your traditional chocks, your canyon dancers, your tie downs, all that other stuff, you can use with these if you want to, but you absolutely do not need to. It's a pretty big benefit as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, again, bringing back that ease of loading, especially in a solo type of operation, these things are just absolutely awesome. So I mentioned we talk about installation for just a moment. So these things are very modular. The plates really carry across from bike to bike. They almost all work across the line with the exception of some very wide tire motorcycles. But if you have this system, all you need to do is add additional plates and pins. The pins are the vehicle specific piece. Make sure you use our bike finder and we'll show you exactly the pins for your motorcycle. However, again, the modularity, this means you can even invite buddies too. If you have a trailer that has room for multiple bikes, you can actually talk your buddies into purchasing the half kits that you need to actually add another bike, and maybe you wind up with something else in your trailer and your buddy doesn't have to shell out a whole bunch of cash. That's really nifty. So the installation itself on these though is pretty simple. I called it a 2 to 3 beard, on our beard scale of difficulty. It's not a very difficult install. You do need to drill some holes, and that's really probably the most difficult thing other than bolting this thing down, getting underneath the trailer. However, where it gets kind of a little bit shaky is really just you have to measure and you have to think about how this is going to be set up, especially if you have a front trailer chock. You do need to measure your bike and you need to measure the distance between those very carefully. It's definitely a measure twice, cut once type of situation. However, once you've actually got things correctly measured, putting this thing in place isn't difficult at all. Most of you should be able to do it very easily. So I personally do not use a Pit Bull Trailer Restraint system. My trailer is set up with a different method for locking down the bikes. However, if I was starting from scratch and didn't already have something, this would probably be my go-to. It's just a phenomenally designed system. Don't take my word for it though. Like I said, cruise those forums, look for some of those crazy pictures. Of course, you can always drop down in the comments section, see what some other folks who are using one of these restraint systems in their trailer think of it. If you have any questions that have not been answered there or I haven't covered for you, feel free to get in touch with one of our gear geeks. 877-792-9455. Of course, you can always drop us an email too, cs@revzilla.com. And I'm out of here.